Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. This is Bottom of the Beaker, the weekly show about the design, ducks, and strategy of Keyforge, everyone, and I mean everyone's favorite unique deck game. I am the drunk on moderator power JT Russell. And with me tonight is a man who, he says he's ready for a brand new job, gunslinging in the Wild West. And the very best part is when he's filling out his resume under past experience, all he has to do is write his name. I am, of course, talking about Quick Draw 3457. How we doing, Quick Draw?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling better than I was last week. I don't know if my illness was showing last week, but I am feeling great tonight and very excited for this one.
Due in no small part to the topic due evening, I'm sure. But we are not alone in the lab. We are joined this evening by a gentleman who is himself the answer to one of life's great questions. The question being, and we don't need Mackie B for this one, the question being to be or not to be Hawk. That is indeed the question. And the answer, of course, is our one and only B Hawk himself. Good evening, B Hawk. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome.
I
Behawk,
love
Excited to
this
be.
switch up.
are
I
you
love this switch up.
are you blushing right now? You're so thrilled.
I am. It's not the same joke, but it is a nice one. It's a nice change.
Yeah, I promised the next time we'd mix it up. But when I go to edit the episode, I'll cut in your usual.
Yeah. Well, I also liked the Shakespearean reference. It's nice.
I've been told this that when you are in a theater, it is bad luck to say Macbeth as a
That
as
is fair.
as
Yes,
oh, okay.
is true. I was in that show in high school, so
Did you
Nice.
ever say the word?
of course I did because I didn't
Well,
believe in it. But
Oh,
everyone else was like,
as like in
no,
the
no, 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 no.
there you go. In the normal course of rehearsing, like you got to do what you got to do, I guess. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I've heard it is a superstition not to say the name.
It is.
Just in conversation. Huh.
Yeah, it's
and Behawk never
also,
set foot on stage again.
it's also bad luck to say good luck on opening night.
You're
Don't.
supposed to say break a leg, right?
Yes, that is true.
Hmm.
Or don't f up. Was
Oh,
a pretty
that's the thing you're
popular one.
supposed to say?
That was very much popular at my high school. Everyone switched to that.
Nice.
Shake hands, look intently into their eyes, and say it. And
I like that. I
yeah.
like that approach.
That has some nice stay sloppy vibes. Get out
Yeah.
there and stay sloppy.
I'm gonna say that to you guys next time I see you at a vault. Game
Absolutely.
one.
Exactly.
All right, guys, don't fuck up.
Oh man.
Ooh, oof.
Uh,
Yeah, shots
Oh,
fired, chat.
JT's got to edit. Sorry, I made JT do some editing to make this more kid friendly. Sorry about that.
We are in rapid fire mode on production. Getting all the cats, getting all the cursing. Like, folks, be warned. Yeah, this is the raw cuts are coming. Yeah, even the eye references. What can we say, chat? It's all getting its way through. But welcome indeed to the chat, and good morning, Vietnam again. Yeah, I love to have you here.
yeah,
Holy
that's a good one.
moly, very cool. Ketzer, Data Forge, Cloggin, welcome, folks, welcome, and of course Riku. Yeah, good times in store. We have a fun topic in store for this evening. We're talking about adaptive slyly. No.
Definitely going to talk about adaptive.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Folks have come to expect by now, I'm sure. But we are revisiting a topic that we touched on some episodes past. Quick draw through the magic of editing. I will cut directly to the moment when he says what episode we last talked about complexity.
Episode 63, The Lenticular Design of Keyforge.
Nice. See, look at that editing. It was right on cue. Didn't have to scramble at all. Awesome. And so we are revisiting complexity, although with a little bit of a different take, a little bit of a different spin, right? I think last time we kind of introduced the different flavors of complexity, and we can restate what those are, I suppose, here, and dug into a little bit of what it meant and what it meant for design. And I think now that we know what it is, we're seeking it out and looking at what to what ends we might bend our knowledge, as it were. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started this little project. I've been thinking about doing this for a very long time, and probably since we did that episode 63, where I've just found that I really enjoy playing complex decks myself, and so I wanted to find a way to categorically like seek them out and find them, more, efficiently than just kind of like going through my collection and looking at things that looked complex to me. So first of all, big shout out to Aurora. So we talked to Aurora a few episodes ago. She is starting recently the point cap format, where she has her own custom spreadsheet to track individual scores for different cards, and then concatenate them into the total score for a deck to kind of like make sort of like a salary cap Keyforge League in some ways. And so I adapted that sheet with her blessing, and I added three complexity ratings based on those same ratings that we talked about in the lenticular design episode, being comprehension complexity, board complexity, and strategic complexity. And so it was a very sloppy, subjective rating system. I just gave every card a 1 to a 3, and I had to rate every card in the game, almost 2,000 cards. Um, Took some time, but like the point was that I am trying to just quickly say like, okay, this card is a 1, it's not complex. This card's a 3, it's very complex, and just not doing a ton of granularity with it, and then putting this into the spreadsheet that Aurora made, which will do some calculations. You can analyze your own collection that you download from Dexa Keyforge, and will spit out scores in whatever kind of category you want. So in this case, each deck in my collection getting a score for its total comprehension complexity, board complexity, and strategic complexity. So we will define those for you momentarily, but that's kind of just like the high level gist of what this was, a project by me to just kind of seek out complex decks, and we'll kind of talk about uh, why you would want to do that, what we can glean from this, and what we learned from all of my sloppy ratings in here.
Hmm.
All right. And the first would be recognizing that Quick Draw likes complexity and thus dark tidings, which
Yeah.
is why you should always just go back to DT. Did you find that in your results after you summed everything together?
So JT did some magic pivot tables in this sheet for us, and we did a lot of sort of rankings by set, by house, that we can see like which house is the most complex from what set, which house is the most complex overall, things like that. And if we're talking about sets, DT came, I think, third in overall complexity, behind which should
Surprise,
be,
surprise. That is
yeah, no,
very surprising.
no surprise that I ranked DT high in this regard. I have been saying that it's I love the strategic depth that it offers, and I think a lot of that comes from the complexity. But Grim
What
Reminders, as we can all imagine, is
ranked
the top one.
Grim Reminders was the top,
Yeah, Grim Reminders was definitely the top.
and number two.
Surprisingly, number two was Vault Masters 23.
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
is your take on Grim Reminders for adaptive?
I we can let's get into that a little bit later, actually, because I do have
Okay.
some thoughts on it.
I'm
Um,
just curious because
yeah, I'll
I'm just
definitely.
surprised to hear
Yeah,
this.
I'll get into that in a bit. I'm happy to talk about that. I do like we weren't kidding when we said we are going to connect this to adaptive, because another like one of the side reasons that I wanted to seek this out was not just that I enjoy complex decks, but I actually have a theory, had a theory, or have a theory maybe still, that complex decks are very good adaptive choices, because you want a deck that gives you, the player, a lot of decisions and a lot of ways for you to become familiar with your deck, and then understanding which of those decisions is the right path to go down. So the more complexity, in my opinion, my thought was that the better adaptive deck it's going to make, because your opponent, unfamiliar with that deck, may not make those same decisions that you've kind of trained yourself to make. So that was sort of like the other driving factor for me to do this.
But that is very much the player needs to be adept at making those decisions then.
Yeah, exactly.
So what if I'm a simple mind and I just like to go fast? Does that mean complexity is for me?
Well, we were talking because you analyzed your collection as well, right?
Yeah, I did.
And using my scores, and it seemed like most of your favorite decks weren't the highest complexity decks in your collection. So
No, no, they were not. In fact, the more complex the deck was, I would see it and be like, I mean, my favorite like GR deck was like number 10, but like I was like, I don't know any of these decks. I don't play any of them.
Hmm.
And if I have played them, I haven't really enjoyed the experience of playing with them. So that
You
was
are a
my
fast
take.
player online.
I am.
Yeah, you just sling the cards, sling the
I'm a
cardboard.
card slinger. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but on that, like, are these decks that you had looked at and said like, "Oof, such wall of text everywhere," like, no thanks, or they just never even interested you? Like, are they decks you're like, "Oh, this is in my collection, I guess," or are you like, "Oh yeah, that deck, I had no interest in trying it out," you know?
It was more like the complexity. Like I understood that there was some inherent complexity. When I saw that that these were my more complex decks, one of them was a DT deck that I knew was really, really good, but I always never played because I thought it was way too complex.
Okay.
And to find the most optimal efficient line wasn't clear for me because it was so draw dependent that it felt like every single game there wasn't like a formula or a way of playing the deck that I could do every time. And I like consistency. So
Hmm.
when a deck is overly complex that it defeats the consistency that I'm looking for in a deck, I don't want something that's consistently complex. I want something that's consistently winning. So like the consistency versus complexity axis was fighting for me
Hmm.
in some of the deck, and at least one of the decks that I saw at the top for me.
Gotcha. So you felt like you were managing lots of rope and getting yourself into trouble often, and
Yeah,
that was not a good
yeah,
feeling.
I was very much tangled. Yeah.
Gotcha. Neat.
Hmm.
That's neat though,
Hmm.
but cool, but validating to be like, okay, yes, this is a known complex deck that I have. Good on you. Good on you, Quick Draw.
Yes, for
For
sure, for
yeah,
sure.
nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So before we get deeper, JT, do you want to define the three types of complexity for us again, or do you want me to?
I guess I can take a first pass, and you can tell me what I've missed, right? So, broad strokes, right? Comprehension complexity is really how difficult is it to read this card and understand what it does? Like, can you comprehend? Can you grok this card? That's comprehension complexity. Uh, Board complexity is a level up, right? So we've moved past just understanding what the card does, and now we're trying to wrap our minds around game states, right? So can I look at the board and understand what's going on here? How easy is it based on the cards that are present? Some cards will involve more tracking, just more mental gymnastics to get a full picture in your mind of what's happening in the game, and those ones have higher board complexity. They involve more tracking, we'd say. And then strategic complexity is a level up from there. They might be easy to understand. They might not necessarily make it difficult for you to understand a game state, but they challenge you to think more as you're putting together a long-term plan for the game. And they may reward you for looking ahead and understanding the intricacies of what that card is asking you to consider long term. Yeah. Does that sound about right? Or anything we want to add? It was pretty rough.
Yeah, I do want to add a asterisk
Mm-hmm.
to the data. It is individual card data, so
Yes.
card to card interaction is not captured.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. Dexa Keyforge does these. They do some direct synergies, but also really like a lot of traits and how they interact with each other. This does not have that depth of like, there could be a two card combo that adds a ton of complexity that is not captured here. It is just each individual card on its own.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, yeah, complexity as a sum of parts as opposed to interactions and synergies and what have you for this analysis. And there was a question too in the chat how we handled duplicates and reprints, right? So the complexity of a card. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Quick Draw, but I think I know the answer based on how the data was organized, right? The complexity of a card was independent of the set, right? So you might imagine that a certain card could get more or less strategically complex with a reprinting based on what cards are printed with it. For this analysis, right, a card was given a strategic complexity rating that it carried with it across sets. And then as cards were printed multiple times in a deck. So you might have a deck with 3 TikToks, and you could say, well, I understand 1 TikTok, so I know 3, right? But still, each TikTok contributed, its own high, as it happened, rating of comprehension complexity, because you still got to read all those words, I guess. But anyway, we that was all additive, I guess, is the point. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and your description was right on, JT, like of those 3 definitions for the complexity. So I kept it as simple as I could for rating 2,000 cards, and I just gave everything a 1 to a 3. And then there is the total that we're going to reference sometimes, which is just literally the sum of each of those 3 scores. So max score for a card being 9, minimum score being a 3. Everything had to have at least a 1.
What was an example of like a 9 rated?
There was 1 9 out of all the cards. Only 1 card I gave a 9. And that's one of my old favorites, which was Curiosaurus. So just to kind of give an example and kind of walk through why I gave it that, you read Curiosaurus, and it is a little bit of a confusing ability because it says like your creatures with this do this when they're destroyed, but then you also have to understand like how that actually functions to really like understand the card. And there's so many other rulings, like you can't gain a destroyed effect after a creature's been tagged for destruction, things like that. So like understanding how that card works and what it does is pretty difficult for the comprehension complexity. So it got a 3.
Yeah, not to mention if you like intermingle destroyed effects, like
Yeah.
moving Amber over and then having a bad penny to return it to hand or
I
something.
think then you're getting into
Bottle.
the strategic. Like
Yeah.
that's more of the strategic complexity and understanding like how to maximize the value from it. There's a lot of ways to maximize the value on it. So like skipping ahead, yeah, like there's a lot of ways to maximize it. So I gave it a 3 for the strategic complexity. And then the board complexity is really like JT was describing, like you're tracking a board state and you need to understand over a long period of time, like always have to remember what this does and how it functions. And this is one of the prime examples, I think, of that. As you can probably guess, like most of the 3s for the board complexity come from artifacts just because they stay on the board, they're static effects, and you're kind of monitoring them throughout. I don't remember offhand. There are definitely a few creatures that I may have given a 3. Maybe the clocks, because you're always like, fidgeting with counters at the end of your turn and understanding the order of operations on them. And but for the most part, yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is to think that like double-sided artifacts probably got a 3 for the board complexity.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see, and I don't want to get too deep into the specifics of how things were rated. I think broad strokes, like this is a consistent kind of lens via the rating, and major props to you for going through each of them there. But I could see something like an Ogopogo being maybe like seeming on its face to be rather simple board state wise, but then you consider that each fight you can have a bunch of different options with it, and things kind of spiral out from there. Could getting a nudge, something like that, getting a nudge in tracking complexity. So less tracking and more like understanding within this turn what a single action, all the different potential impacts that could have, being a little bit more complex. But maybe an example where a creature might bump up.
Yeah, and like I'm fully open to criticism of any of the ratings. Like I fully admit that I had biases. There's probably a lot of mistakes in there, probably some unintended things in there. Like clock decks end up extremely complex because of the duplicates. So like there's things that I could do to refine it, but that's not super important. Like the important thing to me was to establish this baseline as a way of like sorting through my collection to find things, like look through the first 20 or so decks, 30 decks, and see like anything stick out to me here that like maybe I should look at it again and see if this is more my style. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go with it. I'm not too hung up on like every ranking being precise and correct,
Sure.
and like that.
Yeah,
totally.
And also a good thing we got JT over here crunching some numbers to correct for the quick draw bias. His own formula for
Have to
complexity.
put a dampening effect on all the DT cards.
We did mention though, so like let's kind of look at some of the higher level takeaways. So we already mentioned that Grim Reminders came in on top for the overall total complexity. DT was third, as we said. my bias showing through, but I do believe that DT does have it added a lot of complexity to the game with some weirder cards and how to, maximize your value. Like, do I have to raise the tide? What about these cards that lower the tide? What about all these double-sided artifacts in here? And so, yeah, I did feel that was it, it it was my bias, but it kind of at least for my style and my opinion, it confirmed my
Well,
assumptions as well.
and just like the tide in Dark Tidings, a lot of the cards say if you have the tide, if the tide is high, right?
Hmm.
So uh, adding that level to a card implies the complexity of having to make sure that you have it to do the effect, right? On top of the complexity of the effect. Same thing though with Grim Reminders in the Haunted is just tied by another name, right? So it's like
Yeah.
if you are haunted, do this thing on top of the complexity. So and there's all these things that fight with it to like get into the state of being haunted, or things that might take you out of being haunted by playing them. So there's all sorts of complexities that happen with Grim Reminders that I could see that why that is um, maybe more complex than DT.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There were some cards in DT that do reference the tide that I still just gave a 1. Um, so, I didn't have a blanket rule where it's like if you talk about the tide, bump up the score. So,
Oh, well, interesting. Maybe. Maybe that's why.
Maybe. I mean, I think I'd almost think that gives you a boost on the strategic side, if anything, right? Because you're considering tide taking as a game action, and that has some, once, yeah, there's a little bit of comprehension, there's a little bit of board complexity tied into that, but really, it mostly is dealing in long-term impacts of the chains and what the trade-off there. So that's interesting, but
yeah,
we wouldn't have
the
faulted
sheet
you, but you didn't. So okay.
the sheet does not take into account the 37th cards. So, there's no extra scoring for tide, there's no extra scoring for tokens. Even if you have a more complex token, I don't believe the calculations do anything with tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And I have up here on screen for the folks here with us on the stream, just a ranking of the sets. They're ordered by strategic complexity, based solely on the commons. So I'm isolating the commons here, just to get kind of a baseline. And yeah, we are indeed seeing Grim Reminders being rated most strategically complex, though with DT right on its heels by just a mere hundredth of a point on average, which is pretty cool. And so, just to give folks a sense of scale who are listening in, that's 1.56, with Call of the Archons being at the very other end with 1.33. So, on absolute terms, not that far apart, I suppose. But yeah, we can definitely see a ratcheting up there. And yeah,
Yeah,
DT
so
most strategically complex set. I don't know, just about.
you mentioned the common, so like let's get into a little bit of the rarity and
Mm-hmm.
how that factored in here, because one of the things with the lenticular design from Mark Rosewater's original article about it was talking about how Magic had a specific intent to make their common cards the least complex, and then the uncommons a little bit more, and then the rares the most complex, because they wanted to make it something so that if a casual player opened a pack, they would, for the most part, understand what their cards did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of crunched the numbers again on the rarity here and found that Keyforge actually adheres to that as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So we saw a pretty steady progression across the rarity. So common, uncommon. Actually, the rares here, I may have a filter I need to swap around. But yeah, we saw the commons being the simplest cards, especially on the comprehension side. So almost a 1 on average, up to a 1.3, 1.4, 1.4 for rare, 1.1 on uncommon. So cool progression there. And on the strategic side too, commons coming at the lowest with the rares and uncommons being higher. So very cool to see that the designers do appear either consciously or subconsciously to be using rarity as a mechanism to manage complexity in the game. So that
Right.
was kind of nice to see. I thought that was nice to
I
see.
feel like that is something that they've held to. Like rares were always like more conditional, more like take that Smarty Pants as a rare because it's like even if the complexity isn't that much, it's not just complexity, it's a measure of like, well, is this a weird quirky card? Like
Hmm.
being a hate against logos, that's kind of weird that
Hmm.
it's only logos that it hates. But those things are one reason, and also Keyforge used to link power to commons, which was opposite of Magic. Because Magic was like most powerful effects were also at rare, which was part of their money making scheme, right? Like buy a bunch of packs, only one card is probably good from that whole pack for your deck, and you need four of them. So load them up. But Keyforge flipped that because there's no deck building, and they tried to put most powerful cards, library access, bait and switch, even though they were limited to copy of one, they were put in at common um, because decks wanted those cards. A deck, if someone got the house, they're like, I want this key card in it. Um, but we've also seen as the sets have gone on that some of the rares are really incredibly powerful. So like they're powerful and complex.
Mm.
Um, I'm not sure if there's still a correlation between power and cards. We didn't do that. You didn't do that analysis, but that was something I was curious about.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because I almost did to start. So like when I was putting this together, I almost put in like just give a card a strength rating, 1 to 3, keep it simple again, and I opted not to. And then right before we were talking, like maybe we can just look at the arc, but the arc data that we have isn't fully up to date, so we weren't able to do that. But yeah, it is an interesting thing to look at. Like not only looking at like okay, like yeah, I want complex decks myself, but also maybe like I want complex decks that have a lot of good cards in them. And so how do I, I can look at SAS, sure, that's a reasonable starting point for that, but maybe if like if I had my own rating for strength, maybe that would be you know, something else that I could look at as a different data point. But I did not do that, but I did think about it.
Yeah, because ultimately, like this complexity and this rating, it can be used both ways, right? It can be used to help find a good decision-heavy adaptive deck, or it can be used to figure out what is a good deck to lend or give to a newer player, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. That's like the opposite end of the spectrum. Like that was another use case I had in mind was like I've struggled teaching some people like they don't really like latch on to the game, and sometimes they're just overwhelmed by like so many new cards, and then you play a different deck and it's like here's a bunch of brand new cards again that you haven't seen. And so trying to keep it simple I think is a good way to do that, and you can use this to see like not what are my most complex decks but what are my least complex decks that might be good for someone to learn with.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to find some that are, or sift out from my collection, the best ones to be teaching, brand new player who's just becoming old enough to get into some mid level gaming, as it were, and what's kind of a
Yeah, and
great.
think about what
Yeah.
Ghost Galaxy did for their starter decks this go around, um, where they actually tailored the experience. Said, okay, no shuffling. We're gonna get rid of the randomization of shuffling. And even some cards were like, okay, we're gonna put extra clarifiers, extra words, but it like absolutely explain this card and what it's doing,
Mm.
even though we normally don't do that. But other cards are actually gonna simplify, and we're gonna reduce the text, reduce the things that it does, add amber pips so that the game is faster.
Really?
So they're making a very short, concise play experience that makes you learn how to play the game.
Huh. I
And
didn't
that's what they
realize.
did with the new starter sets.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting. I
Yeah,
don't know if I
it's very
actually looked
cool.
at them. Huh. Yeah. And there was a question in the chat, kind of as you were saying that, how the new two player starter decks rated. They didn't get rated. I didn't even realize that there were unique cards in those decks. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's almost like Full Moon, for example. I think I remember seeing has like an amber pip on it,
Really.
like comes stock.
Just like so,
So
there's no feel bad for playing it without any
y-
creatures in hand. Like just move the
right,
card.
exactly. Yeah.
Huh.
Interesting.
And,
Interesting.
and it also says like don't shuffle. Like here's how it's gonna go, and it's almost like a storytelling experience of how a game will go. Think about like the canned experience of like I don't know if anyone's played MTG Arena, but like there's a canned tutorial experience where it's like,
Hmm.
okay, you've drawn a land, play it. Oh, you have six land and you just drew this game-winning card. Tap out and play it, and then it just tells you exactly what's going on.
Yeah, there have been
I feel like
some.
that
Oh, sorry. Go
concept
ahead.
was borrowed for this. Yeah.
Yeah, Magic has done that in the past. Decks that ship and say don't shuffle, and then you follow a script to play out the game. The very
Hmm.
very original rule book inserts didn't follow along an actual game, let you play out, but talked you through a hypothetical game, which was always a fun one to
Oh,
read.
okay.
Yeah, but
I
that's
like those
interesting.
walkthroughs. Like
Yeah.
I was learning a different board game that was a pretty difficult board game, and it came with one of those packets where it's like, don't shuffle this, just flip the cards up and do what they say in order. And I did it, and I thought it was a great learning experience, a great way to learn a game like that. Um, and I think that's what the two-player boxes do too. So I
Hmm.
never got one, but I think it's a good idea.
It is,
Hmm.
especially with the way things are going and how the normal sets are getting more and more complex. Which
Yeah.
are they
So
becoming? Is that beginner friendly? Is that good for the game?
speaking of, let's look at that. So you know, you would think by your instinct is probably to tell you that Call of the Archons is the least complex set. And if we're looking at total complexity, sure enough, that actually pans out. Call of the Archons is the least complex set. So if you're looking for decks to teach people with, most likely it's going to be something from Call of the Archons for that reason. AOA is next, then Mass Mutation. Um, Mass Mutation at third is a little interesting, but the enhancements, you know, I find that like when I first saw the enhancements, I was very confused by like, what do you mean enhance? Like
Hmm.
it says it's already been added. Like, what do you mean it's already been added? Like, so those I did not take into account like the enhancement. So I kind of came at it from the perspective of like someone who already tunes out the helper text for
Sure.
keywords like that. So,
Yeah, that makes
um,
sense.
but yeah, Mass Mutation came in slightly less complex than Worlds Collide in Winds of Exchange.
Interesting. Interesting.
It does surprise.
The ones that really stood out to me, Vault Masters being towards the end too, was a little surprising. I don't know if you all were surprised by that, but I was a
I
little,
was.
yeah, I was shocked. Um, I think just due a large part to the logos package. When we looked at all of this broken out by house, I think right behind Geistoid, logos in AOA, what uh, Vault Masters and one other set were kind of the three most highly rated sets by complexity across the game. Just quick draw, you were saying perhaps by the breadth of options that those cards give you, whether it's house cheating or archiving or what have you. There's just kind of a
I'm gonna
lot
blame Star Alliance on that one. Like,
of Star Alliance knocking it down in terms of
uh,
complexity. Yeah.
no, just like, hey, you can do this with this house. Valerica is like, hey, you can play out a house. You can use another card,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
use a non-Star Alliance card, and just a
Yeah.
lot of their complexity around that house cheating aspect of it.
I did give anything with house cheating at least a two. So like even Commander Chan, you know, giving you many options of what to use, even though a
Hmm.
lot of time it's just going to be a reap, it doesn't matter who it is. But anything that gave you an option like that, I definitely gave it a little boost as far as the strategic complexity goes.
Yeah, one thing that is interesting is that in each of the three axes of complexity, it is pretty linearly correlated down the line from set to set. Like, I don't see really any set that has an outlier of one axis,
You mean
right?
they all kind of grew together, in
Yeah,
lockstep across each of the categories. That yeah,
yeah.
it seemed to largely fall
Even
that way.
though AOA felt like it was more board complex than Coda,
Mm.
right?
Although I
So
wonder
like
if
that,
the repaid the repaid shot it down. It's like, yeah, you're just
maybe.
gonna sit here for a while. You thought
Yeah,
like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that board anymore. Fun
yeah. And
fact
then what's
though,
this?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, go on.
Oh, yeah, I was saying, fun fact though, alongside those complexities, we also looked at just like how many words, like how much text was printed on each of these cards, right? And so we looked at Call of the Archons. On average, each card had 80 characters printed. Like flash forward to Grim Reminders, 111, right? So almost 30 more characters on average, just on each individual card. Like things got way wordier, and that's a progression from Coda through Grim Reminders that seemed to follow the same trend as the other ones. Uh, and I was just like, wow, we really stepped up the verbiage
Right. So
on our
what you're
cards.
saying is that Quick Draw spent all this time rating every card, and then you just said, I'm just gonna check the character count, and then there happens to be a one-to-one correlation. I mean, granted, we wouldn't have had the correlation without his effort, but the fact that it was almost solved after the fact, is well,
And now we know.
Now we
now
know.
we
So
know.
Now we know. Now we know. Yeah, without that, we'd just be the sound of one hand clapping, sitting here wondering if this was actually, signal, or we're just making stuff up. Yeah, we're still making stuff up, but now we have two data points.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. I love it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I like it. I
So
like it too.
i- is there any other use cases for an analysis like this? Like not even just complexity, but like we'll share this sheet after in the show notes, link it over on our Discord. We'll share a cleaned up version with. There's a lot of messy pivot tables in this right now, but we'll give the important things, which is that the card data, the card ranking, um, a brief instructions on how to import your own collection if you want to look at it. We'll definitely include the complexity ratings that I put in here for you, but like it doesn't have to be limited to complexity. Like Aurora uses it for other rankings, and she uses it for the point cap events. So really, like it's only limited by everyone's own creativity and like how you want to use this. Um,
Right. Like I could
it's a
imagine
powerful
if
sheet.
I were to take my favorite cards, like, and just be like, no, I love Control the Weak, make that a 10. I love Befuddle and Abyssal Sight, just all the disruptive cards. I just want to rank them super high and then see what comes out. And maybe I'll find my NPE sheet and
Yeah,
and see what I can do with that. So
that's a good example.
it's a great example, and it's especially good for every one of my opponents.
Absolutely.
You guys in your decks that make the game miserable for people. You guys are
Max,
killing Keyforge.
maximum
Uh,
tiers. Maximum tiers. Um, on the three categories that you did put in though, quick draw, one thing that we didn't really touch in, and we talked about last time we were on the topic of complexity, was this idea of lenticularity in design, right? So uh, this idea that you can hide complexity within your design in such a way that it reveals itself as you level up in the game and are kind of ready to tackle it, right? So I think of strategic complexity as kind of this pool of decisions that you only have to really worry about once you're at a place with your relationship with the game where you're like, I'm ready to like think strategically about this game, right? When you're just sitting down for the first time to play, you're just worried about figuring out what stuff does and trying to
Hmm.
muddle your way through getting to the end of the game. You're not worried about maximizing your turns necessarily, or setting yourself up to optimize your outs, whatever, right? You're just kind of like, do I understand what stuff does? Am I kind of comfortable with the board state? So I really like seeing cards that have, from a design perspective, I really like seeing cards that have a low score on comprehension and board complexity, but a high
Hmm.
score on strategic complexity, right? These are the highly lenticular cards, you might say. So these are cards that are beginner friendly, but uh, might provide some depth for you to explore later once you've kind of mastered the basics. So if you're looking for maybe a deck to bring to teach a player who is a strong gamer, and might want to see some depth, but might not want to be turned off by just reading walls of text, you could look for decks, say, that have really low comprehension complexity or board complexity, but have some high strategic complexity, and they'll pick up the game quickly, understand what's going on, and then not be bored in the next 2 or 3 games, right? They'll start to see some of the layers hiding behind that initial like what's going on here kind of wave of learning. Yeah.
That's a really
Yeah.
great point on lenticular design. I think sometimes, like in your Keyforge journey, everyone gets a deck that they get attached to, and then they play enough with it to realize either they're just not winning with it or whatever, but they decide to move on. And then some amount of time later, they revisit it, and it might be a new meta, it might be your own journey might have evolved to the point where you can understand and see the strategic complexities that you can piece together with this extra experience that you have, which I think is really cool to see. I remember when I had put a deck that I've been using down, I put it down after my first Chainbound event. I went 0 and 3 with it. Decided, okay, I thought this was one of the best decks I've ever opened. It was really high SAS. It really looked really good. I just couldn't figure it out though, so I put it down. And then 6 months later, Worlds Collide comes out, and I, on a whim, loaded into a random game because I accidentally misclicked, and then it wrecked. And I was like, "What just happened?" And I think 2 sets later, I just like had figured some things out with boards and pace of play and how to link cards together to get that strategy going. That ended up being pretty good for me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think that kind of experience is there for everyone. So
Yeah. And so like on the lenticularity part, if you have a look at these scores and you filter them to have a 1 in the comprehension and 3 in the strategic, you'll get a list of cards that I think, it kind of validates that look at it, where it's like, sure, it's easy to understand, but then you realize like how much more depth there is to using that card. So there's actually a lot of double-sided artifacts that appear in that
Mm-hmm.
list. Soul Snatcher, Dark Heart of the Forest, which we just talked about last week. Dark Heart of the Forest, you read it and you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But how do you like maximize the value of that is really interesting.
hmm
Um, there's a lot of other double-sided ones like that. Helperbot and Phase Shift both stick out to me as like, yeah, that's a very simple card, but like, how do you use those best? So those are some other examples that came from that 1 in comprehension, 3 in strategic. So
that's cool.
Mm-hmm. And then the flip side is, right, if you see cards that are very high in comprehension complexity, but maybe, I don't know, not offering a ton on the strategic side, um, I don't know. It might be harsh to say that they're just bad designs, but like, uh, you'd have to probably wonder, like, is this card pulling its weight in the set from a design perspective? If its kind of contribution in terms of depth versus complexity is to provide some head scratches on the first reads, you know.
yeah, interesting. So there's far fewer cards that meet that criteria of a 3 in comprehension and a 1 in strategic.
Mm,
I would say one of these is a good card. One of these I probably didn't rate correctly, and 4 of them are just bad cards. So it is the 3 the butterflies from Dark Tidings.
yep,
I
yep.
I
They're all
gave them.
bad.
They're all bad, and they're all just like, what does this do? I don't understand. Like, why can't I play this creature? Like, so I gave all those a 3 in the comprehension. The other bad card was another DT card, Trojan Sauropod.
Oof, shots
Um,
fired on Trojan
That's a
Sauropod.
great card. What?
it's a great card if your opponent plays it.
What do you mean? How? What? It's
You guys
great.
really think
All
Trojan
right,
Sauropod's a good card?
I am being facetious. I think Behawk's being serious. If he's being serious, then we need to have the showdown with Behawk and Not Tonight against Quickdraw, you and I, because I think this card is terribad, and it's her poster child for, like, it's not as bad as people say it is, you know? Not that it's
Yeah.
Well,
good, but it's not as bad as people say it is.
yeah, she's right about the blacksmith. It's not as bad as people say,
Oh
but
my gosh, don't start with the blacksmith. Horrible card.
Why does everyone discard that card?
it's
Terrible.
so good, right, Behawk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got one with an amber pip on it, and I'm still like, I'd probably discard it.
Those are the most fun to me. So like one of the other factors that I had in rating this with strategic complexity is a card that's sometimes a discard. Like if there's a
Mm,
card that like sometimes is going to hurt you, But you're like, oh, that juicy nugget. Like I should just play that for the amber, and then it comes back to bite you. Like that to me definitely adds to the strategic complexity because Behawk, you asked me before the show about Grunt Buggy. Like why is Grunt Buggy rated as high as I did? And one of the reasons I gave was for that reason, where it's like you need to recognize do I have more of these big creatures that's going to punish my opponent than they do? And is this a card that I should just be discarding here? Like, if they have big creatures, am I going to be able to handle them when I need to? And so, to me, like that's a card that you want to discard sometimes, which adds to the complexity as well.
Yeah, I could see that, especially in the lens of adaptive, of like taking a Grunt Buggy deck, but it's like a bad Grunt Buggy deck,
Hmm.
you know? Like,
Yeah,
Grunt
and
buggy
then
trap.
bait
Yeah.
your opponent into playing it, and then you're like, yes.
yeah. In fact, I think one of my, yeah, in fact, one of my most complex decks that I have. The seventh highest complex deck is a Grunt Buggy deck that I have always wished I could get to work, but I never could.
Hmm.
So now, in light of this, I see it's a pretty complex deck according to my ratings. It's my highest complexity AOA deck. So I might give that another shot if I'm looking at like an AOA specific adaptive deck.
Yeah, it is interesting though. I do want to catch you on the I've never been able to get something to work like when you're playing a deck because chances are your opponent will.
As in, you're saying that I should not play
So,
this in
and it's
adaptive
not
because
just you, it's like just audience in general. If you like say I have a Winds of Death key abduction deck, but it's a bad with Wodka deck because I can't get it to work.
uh,
Don't say because I can't get it to work because your opponent almost assuredly will.
yeah,
Mm.
that's how adaptive works
That
usually.
is how adaptive works. Like
Yeah,
that's also part of why I stopped bringing my library access, double face shift, hysteria, keyhammer, controller weak deck because I think it's incredibly hard to get to work, but also sometimes you could just luck out and it just works, and then I'm
yeah,
like, why did I take that?
yeah. Um, so what was I talking about just a minute ago? Oh yeah, there were two cards that I said that I probably rated incorrectly, or one of them was a good card that has high in comprehension but low in strategic. Um, and let me know what you guys think about this. So the one that I think is a good card, but I do think it's a low in strategic is Technorachnophobia.
Mm-hmm.
I
Technoactophobia is the
feel
standout
like
there to me.
it's a standout for like, okay, did this work? How many times do I have to count? And then if you have a deck that has um, like Geistoid and Unfathomable, you like trying to pick out the colors, and it's not
Oh,
like I always struggle with or like Equidon and Brobnar. It's like I can't just look for red or orange. I have to like more carefully count and like how many do I need again?
yeah, I
I
feel like
always I always struggle with
Equidon
that
blends
one.
in with Star Alliance. You think it blends in with Brobnar?
Well,
Man,
they all kind of blend together. Like
they all
imagine if you
do.
had
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
yeah, but also being that it's a random, just like 10 cards, I don't feel there's as much strategy with that.
yeah. No
Mm.
strategy. Just like I'm just gonna pull it, see what happens.
You could, in theory, be like, oh well, if you have an invigorating shower, but again, like you had pointed out earlier, there's no combos that go along with this, so
Right.
like
Yeah.
I'm
There's
not
no
factoring
counting
in.
on. Well, like factoring in, I have Winds of Death or
Yeah,
I love Misfit Toys or
I wouldn't factor in the combos, but you could factor in the general environment, especially for
Yeah,
cards that are not printed across different sets.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, you should be able to only have to count what two houses, but you invariably end up counting four or five to
yeah,
determine whether or not you get to steal. Oh wait, let me
yeah,
count that again. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And
Nice.
you have to keep it in the right order. You can't just
Yeah,
like,
that is the tricky thing, and that is something that ZYX researcher created for Keyforge that is the bane of my existence, and that is discard order mattering.
do you mean
Mm,
Igor or do you mean ZYX?
ZYX is what started it.
yeah.
Igor
Okay.
didn't. It said just pick one. It
Yeah,
didn't pick
Igor
the other
on
two.
TCO does not give you the option, but it should.
The
Right.
option to put of how what order to put things into discard. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
that's not as the thing order mattered was when they printed ZYX Researcher,
Mhm.
which said archive the top card of your deck.
Yeah,
Nothing
gotcha.
else said top card of not deck discard. Nothing else said top card of discard, and that card single-handedly introduced discard order,
Hmm.
and I think it's so dumb.
That's an
And
interesting historical fact there.
It
yeah,
took Magic a long time to shed itself of caring about discard order. For a long time, yeah, you had to maintain discard order, and then eventually they were like, this is not going to be a thing anymore. We're done with this. We're done with this
yeah. The
nonsense.
problem is that they just keep building on it, right? They keep
Mm,
building on
we're
discard
doubling
order
down.
mattering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're doubling down. I mean, it's yeah, it doesn't bother me a ton. It feels like now that we're in, it's just a thing we're doing, and that's fine.
yeah.
Yeah,
But then also there's things like now on TCO, now that it does matter and you board wipe, you're like, no, I don't want that card sitting on top of your discard, but
yeah,
there's no going back once you've played the card. And
yeah.
Unless you have like the well, actually, does TCO let you if you have like you
it
don't
used
do
to
the
let you
auto?
prompt the
Yeah.
order that cards went into discard. And I think some people, I don't know if it's still an option.
Mm.
Whenever it was around, I turned it off almost immediately after hand picking, after one board wipe, all 12 cards, what order they're supposed to go in. And I was
Yeah.
just like, nah, I'm good. Like,
Mm.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot for
and
sure.
I always
Yeah.
hate when like your opponent's like, do you care what order these go into? Like,
So here's an
uh,
interesting one. Here's an interesting one. And I have done this wrong every time I played this card in real life, which may not be that many, but is certainly what's happened. Um, and I think it was Second Act who put me on the right path here. But when you play Future is Past, right? It's not take my deck and put it upside down into my discard pile. It's flip each card individually over, because in order to like reverse the no, sorry, am I doing this wrong? Da, 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 da. That would be the same. Flip each card individually. Well, I
Let's
forget what.
see. Let's see what it says. So Futures Past says swap each player's deck with their discard pile.
Yeah.
Shuffle each player's deck. So you're saying that if you have an empty discard
Ah.
pile, ignore the discard.
So
You
right,
can't just turn your deck over.
swap deck and discard pile. So top card of deck is now top card of discard pile. So you cannot turn deck over, because if you just turned it over, or if you just flipped each card one at a time, same thing, then the top card of your deck would become the bottom card of your discard pile. So you need to essentially turn each card upside down without changing its order. Does that make sense?
what? That's not real.
Exchange your deck with your discard pile. So you're not changing the order of your deck. You're just making each card, instead of upside down, face right side up. So you have
I'm
to,
horrified.
yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
I
however TCO does it, whatever, I don't think I
Yeah,
really
yeah, I
know
think
most of the time.
every
But
single person just goes flump, and then that's when you're done.
yeah,
But I,
because the discard pile does get shuffled, so like what really matters.
the discard pile
Wait,
gets shuffled when it becomes your deck, but your
yes,
deck does not get shuffled when it becomes your discard pile.
right.
Right,
So the bottom card of your deck should be the bottom card of your discard pile.
right.
hmm
So whatever was the top card of your deck should be the top card of your discard pile for cases where you want to archive or shuffle in the top 5 cards of your discard pile.
Thank you, ZYX researcher, legacy anomaly. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that
Well,
Yes,
that
the
would
the legacy, sorry, the legacy ZWX researcher is going to get the Futures Past, not anything else in your deck.
probably.
no, but the opponent CYX researcher.
Oh, okay, yeah, the opponents, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've definitely done that wrong. But I mean, one of those two has to be correct, right? Like whether it's just flip it or it's reorder every single one.
Mm-hmm.
One of those has to be correct, and one of them has to be incorrect. So
Other options.
I
I'm
I
just
don't
saying,
think I've
like,
ever encountered that.
yeah, it's I've never thought about it. I never once considered that I was doing it wrong, but I definitely just flip
When
it
I
over.
swap, I'm just flipping that baby over. I'm just here's my
I'm,
deck, flip over. Like,
Next time we're playing IRL, I'm gonna be like, all right, I'm ready to call the judge. I'm just gonna flip.
you better, dude.
Yeah,
You
you better.
better.
Oh,
Uh,
too funny. Too funny. Well, fun one for today. Yeah, I heard
Um,
that. I heard that, and I was like, that can't be right. That can't be right. I believe it's the case. Let's ask the judge. Bad penny press. Next, ask the judge. I want to get clarity on this one. Um,
Man.
but yeah, there you go. If it's not the
Uh,
case, then it should be a this should be an instance of this is the way everybody does it. So let's make it the make it the ruling.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, no, the IRL.
yeah.
Let's make it easy.
Oh,
Right
so
on.
there is one more card that's a 3 complexity, 1 strategic. I thought this was a different card than it is. I rated it correctly, but just now, like I was thinking it was something different. It is Envoy of a Query,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Winds of Exchange creature that says after Reap, swap Envoy of a Query with one of its neighbors. Also swap all Amber damage counters and upgrades on those creatures. Have you guys ever once
Yikes.
like got a good use out of that to be like, oh man, that was really good. That was
No,
never.
never. I don't think I've ever played that card.
No. And the other card that comes to mind is the one that swaps one of my creatures' powers, makes the
Wait,
power of one of my creatures with one of your creatures.
Yeah, hoaxpitality.
Hospitality. Thank you.
there's also the is it Coda that like swaps cards in the battle line or something, or
There's a Sanctum dude that
it's a Sanctum
moves
dude.
itself around. Something
Yeah,
Guardian,
it
maybe.
moves
I'm not
itself
sure.
around,
Yeah.
but the complexity is if you like use an opponent's creature as if it were your own or something.
Hmm.
It's when you activate Replicator to use that ability as if
Ah,
Yeah.
it's your own. That's where it becomes very strange.
funky.
So hoaxpitality, I gave a 2 in the comprehension complexity. I don't
Yeah.
know how you guys feel about that. Replicator, I gave a 1 across the board. Maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Replicator? Oh man.
That's a bad take.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad
Hey man,
take.
I'm
Throw the
not.
data out.
I
All right. So when are we starting
just
over?
delete it. I'm deleting this sheet forever.
Yeah. So
Uh,
question two. Question two. Does again, this is coming from the chat. Does TCO have impact the complexity? Do you think there are things that shift around significantly when you're playing IRL versus online, like
uh,
near future lens,
Technarchophobia is
technarchophobia?
pretty simple if you play it on TCO.
Yeah.
Yeah, near future lens on the opposite spectrum is way more difficult to understand what's happening when you play on TCO.
I almost say that near future lens spikes super high on the board complexity on TCO because all of a sudden, and I know I'm stretching a little bit, right? I'm not actually looking at the board and figuring out what's going on, but I have
the
all of a
chat
sudden
log.
the chat log. Yeah, I have all this information that I need to ingest and then cross reference with what's been played, what hasn't been played, and where everything is. Whereas I mean, I guess when you're playing IRL, you're hopefully managing that checklist in your mind. It feels easier to me because, and maybe this is just because when I have the information in print sitting in front of me, I'm like, I've got to use it. It's right here, right? It feels like I'm throwing value out the
That
window.
information away. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
to not take advantage of it. Um, and yeah,
Although, to be
yeah.
fair, mostly I just try and find the last card that I just wish that there was a way to just see their top card that they have
Mm,
available to them.
Hmm.
That would make that just so much easier. I
Yeah.
hate having to go to the log to do that.
it's a,
But another instance where, I mean, TCO, it's just simpler for a lot of things.
mm,
Uh, I mean, keeping track of damage and armor, especially because I see some people using armor tokens when armor are static abilities on a card, and so you don't actually need armor tokens, but then keeping track of that is also insane. And
Yeah.
also, and the reason why I say it's static, I mean, there's other cards that give other cards +1 power,
mm-hmm.
like while it's there. That's not extra counters you put on those guys because there's a difference
Hmm.
between counters and static effects.
Yeah. Like
So
Banner of Battle gives everyone +1 power. You wouldn't give everyone a +1 power counter.
exactly,
You
yeah.
should. Yeah.
So there's, I mean, those things are solved on TCO. Also, they solve for the summed power and armor, and like it kind of shows the amount of damage that'll get applied. So that stuff getting solved on TCO is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ketzer brings up a really good one. Scubu is one that we were laughing about earlier. Scubu is very highly ranked in the complexity score. It is given it's like the fifth highest card. It's a 3 in comprehension, a 3 in tracking, and a 2 in strategic. A 2 in strategic only because it's technically a choice, really. I just gave everything that gives you a choice a 2. But it's a 3 in tracking only because of TCO. Because when you're playing on TCO, every time you draw a single card, it stops you and it's like, do you want to do anything? And you have to figure out like, do I? And then you realize it's Scubu, and you don't because you don't ever want the Scubu back. The only reason you ever take Scubu back on TCO is because you want to just get rid of that prompt, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But in real
Yeah.
life, you're just going to ignore it. So like in real life, I don't think the tracking complexity is that high on that card.
Mm.
Right. And then there's also that one card that lets you bring it back if you're haunted at any time.
Singing Scythe
Yeah,
is
the
the one you're
singing
thinking of.
scythe.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
It's tough.
Prompts on that are weird.
It's tough. Yeah, the engine just wasn't kind of set up to handle that sort of those sorts of timing windows and things. So it's just a tough one to get right. Yeah, tough one to get
It
right.
does kind of remind me of MTG Online, where you could pick a pause point because you could have
Set
like
stops.
automatic, like you can allow your opponent to resolve through their upkeep, through their draw step, through their first main phase, combat, second main. You could be like, no, I want to pause before they end their turn, or set a pause before they go to combat, and then just auto pass for every other thing.
Right.
And sometimes I wish you could pick an effect and just say auto pass until you have
Mm,
another prompt come up or something. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I know this is a tangent, but the interaction model for MTG is staggering, and the like just getting like any sort of reasonable client is pretty impressive feat. Yeah.
mhm.
I haven't played
Actually,
much online MTG to be honest, but yeah.
yeah, another tangent while we're talking about other games. Star Wars CCG Online is an incredibly complex game to begin with, but it does have that auto pass function where you can like check a box where it's like, I don't want to do anything for the next like three phases
While
and just
yeah.
like let it go. It works pretty well.
So
Um,
I'm gonna go get a coffee button. Like this is
Let me know
cool.
when it's my turn, please. And then you get back,
yeah,
you're like, I passed my turn.
yeah. Actually, another thing about Star Wars CCG that I meant to bring up a couple minutes ago when we were talking about discard order mattering. Star Wars CCG actually it definitely matters your discard order, but they also have a rule. They've always had this rule and they've never changed it, despite people being like, "Why don't we just change that?" You are not allowed to look at your discard pile. You are not allowed to see what is in there.
Ooh,
It's face up, but you have to remember what's there and what order it's in.
that's so dumb.
So
Um,
I've thought about doing this while playing Keyforge, especially with the advent of Grim Reminders. I haven't yet. But when I'm playing Magic IRL, 100% of the time, my graveyard, my discard pile, is staggered, so I can
fanned.
see fanned. I can see every single card in it at all times. So do you have a rule where you need to have like your discard pile actually stacked, like one on top of the other, so there's no like visible piece?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you are not allowed to peek at it at all in
Wow.
Star Wars CCG.
Dang.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
but
since GR, I've been wanting to fan my discard in IRL because
one of
Mm-hmm.
my
I
locals
could do
does
that.
that, and it's great. It's
Yeah.
really convenient. It's easy to see if you're haunted that way. It's easy to see like house counts.
Mhm.
As his opponent, I always appreciate when he does it, and I'm sure it helps him as well. And I,
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing to do. Just like it's fanned out like across the entire front of his playmat.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah,
I apologize for going back to this MTG uh scenario, but the auto passing, I do remember a funny quirk, and that MTGA would auto pass if you didn't have anything that you could do. But
yes,
hidden information was pretty good.
yes,
So sometimes if you had something to do, you had to figure out how to time it to like make it seem like it auto passed, like you didn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Star
And
Wars CCG
and
has the exact same issue,
oh
but they
man.
also have a checkbox to have like a 2 second delay on your passing, on your auto
Oh
passing.
yeah, that like meta like bluffing.
Yeah,
It's
it
just
really
so
is a bluff.
funny, and it's just like the timing. Like they put it in so that people didn't waste their time. And they're like, Well, now I can't even give an opportunity to pretend like I have something, and like, well, fine, we'll make every game longer again. Like,
Yeah. And they use chess clocks online as well. So it's
so
like
funny.
you are burning your own time just to like bluff that you don't have something.
Yeah.
At
Oh
least, at
man.
least you can do that. I mean, yeah, and I know this tangent has gone a long time, but you could put on an auto pass flag. You know, maybe you don't want to do something till the end of your opponent's turn, so you're like, yeah, I'm just going to auto pass for a while. And there was a time, or I don't know if people still do these things, but you would try and catch your opponent with the auto pass flag on. So so you're like, oh, I think they're auto passing. I'm just gonna like click 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 real quick and then get them to like skip a whole bunch of important windows. But the
Oh,
gamesmanship is
what's that?
real.
You passed your entire turn? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I remember there's a keystroke that would like auto pass
Yes,
like no
yes.
matter what. And so but if your opponent auto like pass the same keystroke, it like if you didn't unkeystroke that, it would just pass your turn to their turn. It's just so funny.
This is like being in world in three body problem. Now I'll sleep for for 6 months.
Oh
Wake
man.
me up in the next
Oh
era
man.
or something. Yeah.
I'm just kind of glad that I don't play that game right now. But
F6. Nice chat coming through. Awesome. Well, that was a fun tangent. Hopefully, Keyforge fans are still with us.
uh,
Yeah. Won't be editing that out, unfortunately.
yeah, it's
Apologies,
like yeah,
folks.
Keyforge has complexity, but it's not these other games.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's all good complexity. This is actually interesting though. Like a lot of that mechanical, like bookkeeping type complexity is like a pre-digital age game like sort of issue, right? Like Magic, they're like, oh yeah, before we resolve anything, let's just make sure nobody has anything they want to do, right? Like flash forward to
Yeah,
Keyforge, we're like, this might get played on a digital client some point. Like, let's just let somebody go through their whole turn, and then the other person gets to go, and you can kind of have this almost, well, turn based. Yeah, it's more and more turn based, but like very much like with digital adaptation in mind at the like core mechanic design level.
yeah. You want to be able to have enough agency that if you take a single turn, that you're doing enough to make it feel like you're doing something rather than just playing a single card. Which
Mm-hmm.
and especially if you're waiting for like this interaction between other pieces, like other games, I think Keyforge lends itself to being able to have like a short, digestible bite of a game in a digital client that could have you could have 5 or 6 games queued if you wanted.
Mm. Mm. Right on. Wow. From the chat, Ketzer, Yu-Gi-Oh has no keywords allowed. That's incredible.
That is hilarious
Yeah,
if
I'm gonna
that makes
take your
sense.
word on that, but that's incredible. Wow.
Wow.
Well, cool. Well,
Um,
folks, we should wrap things up and move on.
Yeah.
Any other
One
things we want to sneak in? Yeah.
one last thing I know everyone's been wondering the entire time. Whirlpool is an 8 out of 9 in the complexity scale.
What's the area didn't get full marks in?
Uh,
Comprehension 233.
that would be. I get you guys are gonna.
What?
This is gonna shock you guys. This is gonna shock you guys. But this goes to show you that I set aside as many biases as I could. I gave Whirlpool a 2 for the strategic complexity.
yeah,
Ooh.
you put captured amber on the right.
That's all you need to do.
That's
N-
it.
What else do you want to do?
just you
I,
shouldn't.
I,
Why are
I
you
have a
playing
right
creatures in the
hand.
first place? You should have been discarding all your creatures.
Uh,
It is almost certainly correct for one of the players at least to not be playing
hmm
creatures. Yeah.
ABCD.
ABCD. The
yeah,
ABCDs of the Crucible, as it were. Okay. Last call for reals. Feeling good?
I feel good.
I
Feeling
feel
good.
great.
All right, folks. Well, I should let you all know then that this episode of Bottle Beaker was brought to you by Mimic Gel, the revolutionary hair gel that adapts to your style needs. With Mimic Gel, your hair will effortlessly mimic the hairstyle of anyone you're talking to, ensuring you always blend in and make a lasting impression. Perfect for any occasion, whether you're strategizing in the crucible or socializing at a fabulous gathering. Infused with the essence of amber, Mimic Gel not only provides a flawless hold, but also a touch of magic. Stand out by fitting in with Mimic Gel, where versatility meets style. Very nice. Very nice. We all know we didn't talk about Fab, but we got Fabulous Gathering in there. They had a couple other games too. I dig it. Uh, Folks, too, I should let you all know that Bottom of the Beaker is recorded live right here on Wednesday evenings at 9:30 Eastern Time, twitch.tv/sloppylobwork. You can find recordings of our past shows and other streams over at youtube.com. We are at Sloppy Labwork over there. For the very best content, 34? No, 57 times distilled and scraped from the bottom of the beaker. You can search for that very phrase in your podcatcher of choice, and we'll be there. Whether you're complex or not so complex, to play some Keyforge with you. All that and more at sloppylabwork.com. Thanks so much to B-Hawk, definitely to B-Hawk, for coming on talking with us this evening.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Quick Draw, got any words for the folks getting over the final audio stop?
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys find some new adaptive gems with this, and stay sloppy.
Stay sloppy indeed. You know, I realized belatedly that I flubbed your outro last time, Quick Draw. So
I flubbed it too.
Well, you flubbed it after I flubbed it. I think you were on the flub train. You know.
So it was your fault. I was like, man, am I slipping here, or did JT just sabotage me?
It was unintentional, but I will take the blame. It was
All right, sweet. I will
blame.
gladly give you the blame.
Yeah. Now that we've cut the audio that's going to podcatchers, I will take the blame.
I got to re-listen to it now and hear what you did to flub that. I don't even remember that.
You know.
Well, I think that you need to play this video.
Uh oh. We got videos to play. What do we got?
Ooh. Well, it's A B C D E F U, the Magic the Gathering parody per Fudginator.
Is this a bottom of the beaker after dark?
For sure. I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
He just recommended it, so I pulled it up.
I'll check it out for sure.
You gonna play a game?
Yeah. Let's jam a game.
Yeah. Hand and brain, I assume.
I assume.
Sure.
Feels like we ought to grab some complex decks. So here's another thing I want to throw out too. We're doing our chain games on this Sloppy Labwork server. I'd like to get those worked in at some point. Doesn't have to be tonight, but would like to be cool to actually get those matchups played.
That would be cool.
What?
Yeah.
Some
Chain
adaptive
games?
short, what would you bid on these two decks sort of thing. And after folks get to weigh in on what they'd bid, it'd be cool to play it out.
Sure.
But mix that in with, matchups that show off the topic du jour, as it were. So I don't know. You all had some decks that you wanted to play that floated to the top or not top.
Should I play my top or
I was wondering,
top
what
10?
if we just don't even curate, don't worry about power level, no peppers tonight, just the top complex decks according to this rating system in each of our
Sure
accounts.
thing. Yeah, it's 10 points higher than
Uh,
anything else.
Same with mine.
Actually, you might have made changes since
I
I
don't
last did it.
I don't think I made that many changes, if any. Maybe
Because didn't you make a change to the clocks?
I
To
did
it
not. No,
only
I talked about it.
only doing one or something?
No, I did not make that change. The thing I was considering with the clocks is, since the clocks come in multiples, giving them a 3 in comprehension, it just really spikes the complexity of clock decks. So my highest complexity deck right now is a clock deck, which is a pretty interesting deck, I must admit. And I have not played it before, but I opened it in sealed a couple weeks ago, and the reason I have not played it is because we were playing sealed reversal.
Interesting. That's fun.
All right, well, I've got a game up.
JT, do you want to play with this deck? Actually, I've never played with it. And let's just keep that going. Do you want to play with this one, and then I'll be the brain?
Okay, I'm game. Let's do it.
I have no idea what to do with it.
Now that's both of us.
Like I said, I've never played it before. I'll just drop it in our private chat over there for you.
Nice. Oh, is this on the Zencaster chat?
I can put it in Zencaster if you like. I
Or
put it in Discord though.
Discord's good. Discord's good.
Behawk, did you leave hands open when you made that game?
No.
Stay sloppy.
All right, I'll
Stay
remember.
sloppy, my friend. And
This
did you
is
make it in
I'll,
beginner?
this is the
I
knight.
did make it in beginner.
All right, good.
I'm playing the knight here. Is that right?
Adaptive best of one.
You are
Show
playing
hands to spectator.
Vegedravi, the Knight of Delicacy.
Indeed.
Floppy.
Vegedravi. I like it. The knight
It's
of
a pretty cool deck,
delicacy.
isn't it?
Uh, it has lots of things in it that I like a lot. Ooh, a double rare. This
Double
is
rare, yeah.
this is pretty cool. All right, I dig it.
All right.
Let's do a victory auction. You want to try that, or do you want to do
Ooh,
or bidding, straight up bidding?
Vickery would be fun.
Why I say that is I want Behawk to lock in his bid, and then we can talk about our bid.
I
Ooh,
swear.
I have a different idea.
Hmm.
What if you two do a Vickery auction, and then
That is good.
I play as the brain for whoever wins my deck?
I'm getting an invalid response from API.
Oh dear. Oh dear. That is the worst. That is the
I
worst
know I've played with this
response.
deck before.
What set is it from?
Reminders.
Hmm.
Hmm.
What is Victory Auction? Is that what we're
So
doing?
so usually when you do adaptive short bidding, like we go back and forth, right? Ratcheting up
Uh-huh.
the bid. With the victory auction, we both just submit one bid, and then the person who bids
Blind.
higher, yes, blind. So we simultaneously each
Simultaneous.
submit a bid, and then the person with the higher bid wins, but takes it for the lower bid.
What?
So, example.
This is a 3 in the comprehension complexity.
Yeah, yeah. No, it
Okay.
sounds confusing. An example will clear it up. Okay. Let's say we
It's not
both.
even like that person's bid plus one.
Nope. Nope. Yep. So yeah, you bid what you want to play it for, uh, and it's not plus one, right? So let's say we both choose the same deck. I bid 7, you bid 5. I bid higher, so I get the deck, but I get it for 5 chains. Your bid. Yeah.
Well, jeez,
Or
these
we
are
just do,
both.
or we just do traditional bidding. We can just keep it simple. Keep the.
No, I like it. I like it. Um, let me
It's
just
no
do
wonder
some
these are both
math
clock
here.
decks.
Wait. Oh, we got 2 clock decks going. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I've talked about
Hilarious.
this.
Hilarious.
They are certainly inflated due to the multiples and the high character count in the text box for each of these.
Yeah, clogging. I think that's how a lot of very very similar to how lots of online auction sites will work. I think it's supposed to be one of the most efficient ways to get uh, people to bid actual uh, bid the number bid what they actually value a thing to be.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm, holy moly. We have some interesting things going on here.
So how are you guys going to? Are you guys going to do a victory? Just like put the number in the chat and then hit enter at the same time?
Sure.
Do you want to do it? I'm happy to. It'd be fun. Okay, I'm gonna be very boring and do some counting.
This is a different approach than a regular short adaptive because you have to have your bid ready now.
I mean, I know we have different approaches to this, but I usually like to have my like final number in mind before making the first
Yeah.
bid.
I have my number in mind.
Wow.
Hmm. This will be interesting. I think I have a number in mind too, but I'm going to let JT do it and I'll share afterwards.
Are we gonna pick the deck first though?
Let's
We
pick the
we
deck
first
and
pick the deck.
see if we have the same.
We simultaneously pick the deck, right? So we
So wait,
let this.
what would happen in a Keyforge Victory auction if JT chooses one deck for 5 and Behawk chooses the other deck for 4? Would they both play that deck with chains?
I think we pick the
No,
deck
pick the deck
first, right?
first. So first you see if you both want to play
All
the
right.
same deck, and then you
All
and
right.
then
So let's do that first using TCO's provided option.
you. Wow, I this is weird. I don't have a number in mind yet, but I can pick a deck while I'm thinking. Okay, I want to play, yeah, Galver
Yeah,
Stead. Yeah,
agreed.
Modestly woolly.
modestly woolly. Shoo, interesting. Wow. Okay. I'm not highly confident, but I have a number in mind.
I do as well.
All right.
Yeah, all right. Can I give you a 3, 2, 1 and you guys hit enter in the TCO chat?
Yep.
Do it.
All right. You guys, no cheating. 3, 2, 1, send. Ooh, all right.
Ooh, okay. Wow.
That's a
So
little higher than I expected. I was actually going to say 7. Um,
it is a little
but now it,
high.
Uh,
I mean,
Seven.
there's a
Okay.
very live Dark Discovery in there for a free key.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so Behawk's going to take Galverstead for 8 then, correct?
yeah, that is correct.
Yes. So I will bid 7. You can bid 8, and I'll pass. Yes.
All right. Yeah.
All right. So it works out that JT and I get to play my most complex deck.
Mm-hmm. With
Against my most complex deck.
yes, with a very live Dark Discovery and like 0 pips. Where are all the pips?
You don't need pips.
Pips overrated.
Your pips are all on the big one.
Yeah, for real. I mean, maybe not all, but like half. All right. Good luck
1,
and have
2,
fun.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I counted 10 pips.
10 pips not bad. Maybe it was
Yeah.
the other deck. No, 10's not too bad. 10's not
Yeah.
too bad. 10's workable. All right.
Um,
Brainiac, are we keeping this hand?
are we keeping this one? Um, ugh. Yeah. Yeah, we'll keep it.
Okay. It's kept.
I'm gonna call. Oof. Oofa doofa. Let's call Brobnar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. All right. I'm gonna play myself a rickety cyber giant. Pass the turn.
I almost called
You
Geistoid.
did.
I probably would have
Would you?
called Geistoid. Yeah. I don't know if it would have been
Interesting.
right. I didn't have a strong feel on it, but
Yeah.
That's all I can do, man. I got 2 cards. What do you want?
hey, two card half your hand was one house. That's not
That is.
bad.
Also, that was guaranteed, right?
Well, as a minimum, yeah.
Okay.
There's not
Yeah.
much
I
you
was
could
like, wait a
do.
minute.
I was trying to make him feel better for rolling his low roll, you know.
Let's go Brobnar again.
Okay.
I like it. I like it.
See, now I need to think, do I actually want this thing to fire?
The big one?
The big one.
Yes, you do.
I think I do. Probably,
I mean,
right?
you have more creatures than me.
I guess. I want something to say to those haunted houses is kind of my rationale. and I'm gonna reap, much to the chat's dismay.
Hmm.
My Echo Guardian doesn't have poison
Yeah,
yet.
Cloggin, I would have fought there for sure.
Well, maybe if you gave me a deck with more pips, I'd be inclined to fight instead of reap. I, I don't know. Do you think fight there, or if you think fight there? I don't know.
Uh, yeah, I probably would have fought.
I feel like now that I'm in on the big one, I'm pretty happy to reap, but I could see a case. I could see a case. All right, so what are we doing here? Immersioneer, discarding some of my stuff. Fine. We discarded Countryside Crusher, Echo Guardian, and Skullface. Okay,
Hmm.
cool.
You're welcome.
Unsettling Ancestry to stun and exhaust the Wonder Boar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's go Unfathomable.
Okay. Hmm. You don't say.
I remember why I don't play with this deck.
Mm-hmm. 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 I guess. All right, I'm gonna run out the dive deep. Just gonna run out the dive. Am I running out the dive deep? Feels bad. I think I am. Okay. Legerdemain. Don't feel great about that. I'm
That
gonna
seems like a waste.
bounce this Immersioneer and then destroy your Guardian. There.
Not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of banking on being able to TikTok. I feel like the clocks are going to set up my Dark Discovery better than they're going to set up extra turns. So
Well,
I'm
you have
mining
other
a
ways to
bunch.
set up Dark Discovery. I was fine with playing the dive deep. That was not a problem.
Yeah,
I would have actually bounced his creatures with Wrath of Ruin.
I I wanted to deal with all the things except for the sloppy one.
Yo, that's a good hit. Synchronizer gone.
Um, Interesting. Back to Infallible too. Yeah, to clog up their hand, you mean?
Oof. Yeah, to clog up the hand, really. So you lost a creature. That's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll take some more chains. That's good.
Those chains for Beehawk. Yeah, I would have felt better about clogging up their hand if they didn't have the sloppy pip on the Immersioneer. Though admittedly it's a smaller consideration, yeah.
Uh, let's go Geistoid here.
Geistoid it is. Alright, we're gonna play this Ecto for a pip. We are gonna run out the TikTok. We only have 2 TikToks. I I think I'm just gonna stun your dudes here.
They're just doing too much work. I know.
Too
Yeah.
much work.
I like that.
Too much work. I might be overvaluing the TikTok. I'm not sure, but I didn't want to put the 2 counters on the big one. Didn't want to leave de-escalation. What?
Hmm.
What can I
My
say except you're welcome?
my guy. My guy. 3 archives for me. Okay.
Yeah, seems good. Hmm. Let's go Brobnar.
Okay, Brobnar it is. Seeing real quick if I've got things to worry about in terms of battle line ordering. Not so much other than taunting. So passing on the archives. I'm going to play Brick. Play the Cyber Giant and the Blunderbore. They're all going to get ready and
Nice.
reap.
Nice. Good old reap stuffs.
Good old reap stuffs. Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Grim Reaper comes in. Nice and ready. Wowza. Purchase the Blunderbore. And the
Right.
TikTok.
Got rid of his TikTok. Let's forge that yellow key.
Oops, sorry. I jumped the gun.
Oh my
no.
God.
The one thing you get.
The game is voided. JT cheated.
That was totally by accident. I promise.
Sure. Let's go Geistoid here.
Let's go Geistoid here. All right, we are going Geistoid. And we're taking the old archives. It should be next set, Cloggin. Yeah. All right, Energy Vampirism comes down for some monies. Clocks come down. Trips.
Nice.
And we're gonna.
Oh, okay. He did it right. Thank God. I was like, oh, please don't do this in the wrong order.
Did I? No, I did the right order, right?
You did good. Yeah.
All right. Sheesh.
Nice one. Nice
I
one.
think we're going for clocks here. Although I'm going to take a TikTok. I'm going to take a synchronizer, and I'm going to take the ecto charge. Seems okay.
Nice.
Yeah. There's some things. How are we feeling about that?
I think I feel pretty good about that.
Okay.
I don't feel that
Ooh.
great about it.
Although, so key color is not new in so far as it's referenced in the names, though, right? But like, it was just first, second, third. Yeah, they gave us bronze. Was it bronze camp? Bronze, silver, and gold, right? Is what we had. Bronze being red, obviously. First key.
Let's go.
Yeah, they gave us the key
Geistoid.
amps that told us what key is what.
You said Geistoid, sorry?
I said Geistoid here, yeah.
All right. Make it pop with the clocks. Synchronizer comes down.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oof, we'll have to pay full price plus one. I guess we can do that. Yeah, I'd rather have
full
the
price plus one.
19 and discard for our ecto charge. I can
Okay.
yeah, discard a clock.
Okay.
Let's see. I do want a TikTok. Is this more valuable as a pseudo amber or an extra counter? 2, 3. I can get to 6 and purge some things. I guess we'll do. Yeah, we're gonna play the chronometer on the right here. We'll reap and pay a little extra.
Nice.
Yeah, forge this key. I will, in acknowledgement of my earlier faux pas, I will allow you, Quick Draw, to choose the key color that we forge now, even though it is mid-turn and, you know, technically I think falls under my purview.
I'm not falling for this. You know which key you should forge, and no matter what I say, I know what you're gonna do. So you should just do what you think is right here.
Yes. Blue.
Blue key is. Hey, Strife Sada, welcome and thanks for the raid. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully you're on the red, blue, yellow key train.
Uh, what's up, Strife Sada? We actually, Strife Sada is Milo, who I refer to, that fans the discard pile when haunted, or actually
Awesome.
not when haunted, but just in general. We were giving you props for that, Strife Sada, earlier. It's a good strategy for seeing haunted, seeing the order, seeing everything in there. So that's pretty cool. Thanks for the raid. Um, so yeah, so I there's a couple things I. Oh, you're not done with your
Not
turn
done
yet. I'll
yet.
let you finish your turn, and then I'll tell you everything you did wrong.
Yeah. I'm just thinking. So I round up on the synchronizer. So I think I want to do the TikTok first here. Do. We're gonna draw a couple things. Thinking. I know we've already drawn. Yeah, I'm gonna toss definitely this dive deep and some other thing. Probably that seems like an odd choice, but sure. And then Dark Discovery. Spoilers.
Question mark?
Question mark. All right, cool. And now we get to
Alright,
purge a thing
yeah.
from a discard pile. I will take your I don't pull up stakes. Sure. Just
Oh, yeah,
because
because the shuffle is bad. Yeah.
shuffle is bad and I kind of want you to have more stuff on board when I do my things, just in cases. Okay, quick draw. Now you get to tell me the stuff that I did wrong.
So I wouldn't have played the Ecto. I would have just held it,
Mm-hmm.
just walk off with it for 6 later. I don't think you were in a hurry to forge with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also don't think I would have gone for the Dark Discovery. Just kind of lean into the clocks, I would say, because if you time walk, then you're fine.
Time walk and pull back some other Geistoid creatures, you mean?
Well, like pull back the TikToks. Um,
I guess. Yeah.
yeah, obviously Behawk stole the synchronizer,
Mm-hmm.
so you can't time walk unless you would have taken back the TikToks.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's true.
Well, maybe you'll get lucky here.
I will get
Uh,
lucky. Guaranteed.
Uh,
uh,
It might be Cloggin. That's in my if it was me, that's in my general arsenal that I will reach for often. Hey, albino cheese monkey, welcome. Oh, blue, you're fine. Yellow, caution. Red, full stop, game over. Yes, red is full stop, game over. Except I forge it first, just in cases. Oh yeah, definitely. Um,
I mean, I guess let's go unfathomable and see if you can get lucky, or maybe we'll just wuss out and you won't even try.
Wait a minute. Is this wussing out? No, I'm gonna go unfathomable. I am not taking my archives. Oh, what the heck? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to do that yet. I want to just draw the thing. So I'm gonna bounce these, play this one,
Ew.
and then hold that.
Nice.
And I think actually I'm not going to fire the
Chrono.
chronometer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
smart.
Yeah. Uh, I wasn't going to risk it there. Oh, oh, clocks are
Oh,
coming.
that's pretty cool that you might have two synchronizers coming. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. We'll see. Um,
We'll see. Just in cases. Okay. Resolving all the things. I like it.
All right, we'll go unfathomable again.
Okay. I guess.
you think this is it?
Think this might be it.
I'm gonna keep it simple for myself. Let's put an immersioneer on the bottom.
Oh, dude.
And let's put an immersioneer on the bottom.
Wow. Make it easy.
Yeah.
So easy, even JT can do it.
I have
The
messed this up before.
Germinator is brutal.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Nice.
Hey, there's that
Hey.
yellow
Nice.
key.
Hey, I had
GG.
0
PP.
amber.
That was a total shutout.
That
Oofa
was.
doofa. Oofa doofa.
Man, I feel like this deck just didn't come together. And maybe it's me. It's probably me.
Hmm.
I
Uh,
think like I said, I thought the chain bid was a little high.
it may have been a little high in retrospect. I mean, we have
Maybe.
one game of
But
sample size. Yeah. And I don't think it was that far off
Mm,
um, of
yeah,
the true median of the like range for what it should be. But
I I just felt like I kept getting unfathomable, and my unfathomable, like if I discarded it, shuffled more of my unfathomable back in to
hmm,
my deck, and I'm just like trying to get to my good Geistoid, and it was just way, way down.
yeah.
yeah,
Well, quick draw.
Because
You were
yeah,
saying you thought seven chains was right,
yeah. And seven wasn't too much different. I don't think it would have made it a major impact on the outcome, but
right? Because we had a bid for 10, but it was played at 8, right?
yeah,
yeah,
right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hey, all right, Fudge. Fudge, what's the bid? What was your bid? Chat saying the decks are too high. The game bid was too high. Could be. Could be. Ooh, and I'm putting this in the old
how I came to this decision was I added up speed, so
mm-hmm.
including recursion, so I had 14-ish chains for Galverstead, offset by the 8 for Veggie Razor.
Other veggie, but yeah.
No, sorry, Vegedravi. Vegedravi.
All right, deck that was bid on. We bid on Vegedravi? No, we bid on the other deck. I'm being a good doobie and putting this into our form that I'm eventually going to use for a beautiful AI that will do bidding for us. We did 8. We were saying somewhat
Yeah, we did
confident.
8.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I think it was draw order, and I think I should have discarded Catch and Release when I had it
Mm,
early.
Yeah,
I
I think those
And
chains really hurt.
de-escalation also coming early, and I played it instead of discarding it.
Hmm. So did you guys find these decks particularly complex?
Um, very.
Was it more than just the clocks?
I think it was exacerbated by the chains. So,
Hmm. Immersioneer is a tricky one too, because there's cases where you're just like, man, I don't even know if I want to reap here.
yeah.
right.
Um,
Because, like, making you haunted, but I was trying to get rid of some of your tools, but then that fed TikTok, and I didn't want to get rid of my own synchronizer because there was my own cards I wanted to play, but the option might have been to just keep it as keep my discard empty. I don't know.
Mm. Immersioneer is interesting too. I think its utility in Vegedravi, right, is more as a piece that lends consistency to the combo. So it almost took a little bit of bite away from its complexity that it might otherwise have. Um, right. Uh, Interesting. Yeah, but there was a lot of decision cycles that went into the archiving
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
from the
like that
talks.
with the TikToks.
I do too.
I just didn't see anything I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that your deck B-Hawk had 3 TikToks was a big reason why I was also agreeing to bid higher on it. Like a
Yeah.
third TikTok is just it's crazy if you find them.
Mhm.
Six
I
six
was
clocks
finally
plus the
getting some
synchronizer. Yeah.
momentum, but it was took 8 turns.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it was those 2 extra change from catch and release 2 that hurt.
Mhm.
Catch
So
and
I
release
don't
hurt.
know if
I
that
think
was
the
it.
the de-escalation I don't think was a good play. Um, you killed a
2
clock.
creatures.
No, wait. Yeah,
It was
Yeah,
a single
no.
clock. It was just a clock.
It was also like getting rid of some cards in my hand. It had
it
2
was a
discard
sloppy
tips.
de-escalation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was some efficiency there with the sloppy pips. A sloppy
Hmm.
de-escalation. Okay, a little better. A little better. Yeah.
But it doesn't. And I was hoping to get back to another catch and release, I guess, but that's also chains, and I don't know. Just didn't feel like I knew what to do. This is why I don't play these complex decks. Quick draw.
It's a tough spot.
Just can't do it.
That was cool. That was cool.
Notably, the the match I lost in Kagi was against Andy P, and he used a clock deck.
I think. Wait, what did I play against him? What did he have? I don't think he had clocks against me.
Mm,
It was a Grim Reminder stack, but it was not. He was cursing my Dark Tidings. That's all
mm,
I remember. Actually, no, it was Winds of Exchange deck. Now that I think of it,
mm.
I think it was Winds of Exchange, but no clocks.
X player
Yeah.
was cursing my Dark Tidings. You're thinking of every adaptive match you've played in recent memory.
A little bit. It happens a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fun
Double
one.
Whirlpool will do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially
Sure
against
enough.
Customs Office double grasping vines.
That was the rough matchup, and as you already know, my only loss of the season so far in Kagi was
So far.
was to you.
Mm,
Yeah.
feels good.
Spicy.
Well,
All
I
right.
guess wrong on this one.
I don't
It
know.
happens.
It's well, one game is sample. Hard to say if it was a wrong guess or if it was a bad roll. But
Never know.
fun nonetheless, and some
Yeah, it
some
was.
complexity on display. Interesting decisions for sure. I
What's
also very rarely opt to archive from hand with the clocks. So I think it was
Yeah.
kind of fun to get to do that, especially as I was approaching bottom of deck and wanting to maximize the dig over a couple turns.
I feel like I'd never archive from hand.
Yeah, very rarely do I. But
I don't
cool.
even see that my hand is eligible. Like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, we'll wrap up the old stream there then. Thanks for hanging out in the chat, folks. Fun times as always. And yeah, we'll see you around the lab.
Have a good
Thanks,
one.
guys. See you.
Night, y'all.